thank you for the way that you led the conversation. I've been to a lot of podcasts and I feel like I've been saying the same things on and on and on. I feel like I had a different conversation with you guys. It's actually a story that he told me because he was playing abroad, so I couldn't see that. But he told me he didn't do the visualization before the game, and he entered the first half of the game, and he was missing a few shots. He wasn't really in his zone. He wasn't really focused, and then he was like, I remembered in the halftime that I didn't do the visualization. So I went in the halftime, because he's done it so many times before, it took him just a few seconds to really get himself back in the zone. He did the visualization in his mind, and then he went in the game after in the second half, and he crushed it. Back into the present moment so that you're not in your head and in your thoughts. Because what is our goal here when you're performing? It's for you to be in the highest or peak state. The peak state or the zone in basketball is also scientifically called the flow state. The flow state is when you're at a higher level of consciousness, where you forget time and space and you're fully present in the moment. This is when you're able to use your full skills and abilities, where you're able to take faster decisions, where you're able to play from intuition, where you're able to problem solve much faster than before. So to me, the main goal is to keep them in that flow state as long as I can and as long as they can.
Welcome back to Beyond the Buzzer, the podcast that articulates the interplay between balance, adversity, and success for high-performance athletes after retirement. Today's guest is the embodiment of what it means to get the best out of yourself. Maria Saab is MENA's top high-performance coach, a founder, a CEO that helps C-suite leaders, artists, and athletes thrive. In this episode, she discusses what it takes to unlock the best potential you have in yourself. But before we let you guys watch the episode, Sam, tell them what they got to do.
Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and help us keep bringing you these amazing guests.
Enjoy the episode, guys. Maria, welcome to our show. Sam and I are excited but nervous. We think you're going to challenge us to think outside the box a little bit today.
I'm the one who's supposed to make people feel better, not more nervous. If anything less. Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
I am thrilled to have you on. It is going to be a great episode. I'm super excited.
Same here. Let's
Maria,
go.
as you know, we start off all of our episodes with the shot clock section. Typically, we tell our guests to get us, answers in 1 to 2 seconds, but for you, we're going to give you a little bit more time, and we're going to start off in a couple seconds. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. How do you prepare for a big meeting or a talk?
2 key things. 3 actually. Visualization, deep breathing, and preparation. If I am super prepared and if I know what I'm going to be talking about, just put me out there and I'm just going to speak my truth. What helps with this, I'm going to make it a little bit longer, but what helps with this is that what I do is my language and my philosophy in life. So I just go out there and speak my mind. So it decreases the nervousness.
One thing you have to do every day.
Besides wash my face and brush my teeth.
Fair, I'll take that.
Favorite preparation technique you advise your athletes to use before a game?
Visualization, 1,000%.
Ice bath or saunas?
Saunas.
Okay.
Reading books or listening to podcasts?
Podcasts.
Most interesting client you ever worked with?
I cannot disclose.
Okay, was he an athlete or no?
I have an athlete and an artist. Super cool
Nice.
people. Yeah.
Fair.
Favorite motivational speaker or thinker?
Les Brown, for sure.
Nice.
Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Eric Thomas. These are my top 3.
Okay. Favorite self-care routine?
Working out.
What's been the most challenging part of your journey so far?
Throwing myself into the unknown and then having to figure it out. And that requires me learning so much about things that I have no idea about. So I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do, how to learn, who to ask. So that's challenging, yeah.
What is the most challenging part about working with athletes?
Their schedule.
Fair.
They
Yes.
don't know their schedule until last minute and I have to adapt.
I'm still guilty of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm experiencing that with Sam at the moment, but I'll let it slide. What is your biggest pet peeve?
Uh, when someone doesn't have a growth mindset, they don't want to grow, they just want to stay where they are. And lack of hygiene as well. Hygiene is
That's a good one.
What does the word awareness mean to you?
the number one step towards any change in behavior.
Last question. One tip for getting rid of the enemy within, as you phrased it.
Can you repeat that, please?
One tip for getting rid of the enemy within.
Um, get to know yourself better. Because once you do, there is no enemy within.
Sam, my reflection on this actually will lead us into the rest of the interview. So go ahead and ask what you think we want to talk about.
Maria, I want to ask you, and I'm sure the audience don't know, what is high performance coach? Can you elaborate on that, please?
I'll tell you how I define it, because I don't define it in the same way it's defined if you Google the word.
Okay.
To me, so in general, high performance coaching is coaching for high performers to help them to reach their peak potential and to help them to optimize their time and their mind and the routines to really help them to create a system that works in a sustainable way as they're performing in their career or wherever else. But to me, high performance is actually about integrating not just the mind and not just the body, because most people think high performance is all about being mentally tough, being consistent, being disciplined and all of that, and also performance for the body in sports to have long stamina, to have fitness and strength and be performing on the court. But really it's the real key here for high performance is the body, the heart and the soul. And once you access those, then your mind and your body are gonna peak. So for me, high performance is when you integrate both the mind, the body, the heart, and the soul all together. That's when you really will be able to reach your peak level of performance. Because then you're working from every single part of who you are, not neglecting half of it and then just working on the other half.
So, do you still need a sports therapist as well with your high performance coach, or the high performance coach which you do is good enough?
It depends on the person. It depends on the coach. So for example, my approach is a therapeutic approach because I go into deep trauma healing and all of that because I'm NLP certified, because I have a background in psychology. So because I've done these different other certifications, I'm able to go into deep healing and take them into high performance as well. But if you've just specialized in high performance, then no, you need a therapist to help you with the deep healing process. And the difference between a coach and a therapist is that a therapist is able to work with psychological disorders like schizophrenia or bipolar, or even to diagnose that, but coaches cannot.
Thank you for clearing that up. I appreciate that.
So, and this is a good segue into the main part of the conversation. You mentioned one of your favorite, speakers, thinkers is Tony Robbins. When you and I first spoke, you mentioned that at 10 years old, you remember being on the way to school, listening to Tony Robbins, jacking yourself up. Now, a lot of the work you do, as you just articulated, is trauma response and overcoming adversity to allow people to achieve their highest potential. Was there something that happened in your life before the age of 10 that led you to be so invested in your own personal development at such a young age?
You're going right in.
I'm going right in.
That's what we do at Beyond the Buzzer.
So it was actually at 14 years old that I was doing that.
Okay.
And of course, I've passed through so many different things on a personal level, mainly on a personal level, which really brought me to look. If I look outside and I see that there are so many things that I cannot change, then there must be something that must be the wrong direction that I'm looking in. So what if I look within me? And it's that really, what really ignited that is, ever since I was super young, I've always felt this inner fire and this high voice within me that was telling me, you're meant for greatness, you're meant for greatness, you're meant for something bigger. It's that fire that kept on burning, and if I didn't act on it, it would get louder and louder and louder. So as soon as I heard Les Brown, he was the first speaker that I heard, every cell in my body just told me you were meant to use your voice in order to create impact and change. And that's what attracted me more to Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Eric Thomas, and I started to really listen to every single word that they were saying, not just for the sake of motivation, but also their voice. I was listening to the tone, I was listening to the energy, I was listening to the character that was in their voice, and I could really resonate with that a lot. So they awoken that fire within, and they directed it into the direction that I was supposed to be on. And so the more I walked in this direction, the more my soul felt more alive. And the more I did that, the more I felt like I was on purpose. And then once I created a career out of it, I was like, and I started to see the actual impact that this is creating, I just knew that, okay, that was why I was so attracted to these speakers, because that's something that was telling me that you're meant for that. It was directed onto the right direction.
But go ahead, Abudi.
So, growing up in Lebanon with the cultural environment the way it was, how did you even access this kind of content, and what was it like being in an environment where like mental health and self-development are still to this day a bit taboo in our region?
I actually never discussed it with anyone to get their opinion. You know, I remember I was listening to them on YouTube, or it was that MP3 downloadable at the time. So I used to download these YouTube videos and listen to them. And nobody knew. That was my own world. Even in my discipline, even in my schedule, even in my goal setting, everything, nobody knew about these things. I was more known for the academic, you know, with my friends, with my family, but nobody knew about these. That was my thing. That was my world. So because I kept it protected, if you want, without realizing, I guess nobody gave me their opinions for me to see whether they agree with it or not.
It's funny, Sam, before you say anything, 'cause one thing I want to talk about is that I discuss this a lot with my closest friend and my roommate, that there's a fine balance between like speaking out loud your goals and manifesting, but also keeping certain things within because of the need to also protect your own peace. So did you also maybe subconsciously keep that in so you could develop it on your own before going out and sharing your passion with the world?
You know, this is actually the first time that I think about it, and I'm loving your questions because I haven't been asked those questions before. I don't know. I guess I was very private about these things. Maybe it was, I don't know. I have no idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. In 2014, I held my first camp when I came back from China and Jordan. And the posters that I gave to every athlete stated, "Protect your dream."
Wow.
And the players asked me, "What does that mean?" I said, "Whatever dream you have to protect it. Because if the moment you give it out to the public, they're going to shoot it down and then kill your dream. So if you want to be an NBA star, keep it within yourself and keep working towards it." But
It's
I want
tough.
to dive in. Go ahead.
Well, it's tough. I think there's a balance,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to live your life thinking that everyone has an evil eye and they're out to get you, but at the same time, typically when you speak about things before they happen, like, there's a higher chance that they won't actually happen because of exactly what you're saying, Sam, and people shooting down your dreams, maybe like discouraging you a little bit. So it's interesting to hear Maria speak that the organization and the planning all happened from a very young age, but she kept it to herself. I know when I was a 14-year-old, I was telling everyone all my fucking dreams, and so it's funny to try and balance these two things and as you get older, you realize that there is such power in like holding things to yourself and allowing things to transpire naturally.
You know, I've learned, that was my belief at the beginning, but then I've learned the opposite now. Because at the beginning, I wasn't also very good at asking for help.
Right.
But then I realized at some point that, okay, if you want to grow beyond where you're at right now, you have to start asking for help, because not just for help as much as perspectives, as much as experience, as much as, different philosophies on how to do different things. So right now, the fact that I started to speak about what I'm creating, to speak about what I'm building, has connected me with incredible people. Most of my mentors are my mentors because I've spoken and shared with them my dreams and the things that I want to be building. And I'm so grateful for every second I spend with them, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have learned so many of the things that I told you was hard to learn on my own, right? So that's what I appreciated when you said there's a fine line in between speaking about your dreams and manifesting and then keeping things to yourself. And I guess there are certain phases, and something just feels right at the moment and doesn't feel right at another. I guess I
Right,
had
right.
to keep that to myself at the beginning, but then if I really wanted to grow beyond myself, I had to share it with the community.
Yeah,
I
because
think
Because
you
it's a
there
need
good
to
are
way.
people
seek
who
that
are
help.
willing to support
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So do you think kids at a young age in like go after their dreams, or their dreams can come, they can seek dreams at a later age as well?
I think both ways work. It
Okay, so
depends
both
on the
work.
person. Yeah, to me, I do realize that I was really incredibly blessed to be able to connect with that feeling at a young age. And this
Okay.
is, I've seen that this is very uncommon.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
they always tell me like, okay, what if I didn't find that at 14? So do I
Right.
still have a chance to be able to? Of course, I'm the odd one out. It's not you, you know.
But how was Maria in her childhood? Like, what'd you do? Was sports part of your childhood? Like, what things were you doing as a
I
child?
was, I was hair tied back in a ponytail,
Ponytail. Okay.
crazy hair, shorts, out with the boys, running around, climbing on trees, crazy, singing all the time, dancing, energy. And I remember I used to wait for the PE hours at school. Literally, I used to run to the front of the row when we had the
Right.
PE, and I used to run down the stairs in order to get to the gymnasium. And every single time I used to look at the guys playing basketball, and I used to ask the coach, why can't we play? And I remember the girls in my class, they didn't want to play. They used to give excuses that I can't, I'm not feeling okay, etc. And so I remember one time I challenged my PE instructor. I'm like, so if you're not going to let me play basketball with the guys, then I'm going to run for the entire hour. And if I really run for the entire hour in the circuits, you're going to give me a 20 over 20 on the report card. And he's like, okay. I did it. Because I wanted to move. I couldn't just stand
Right.
there and play around or I've always loved it.
I can definitely feel the energy. Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you're ready to move around right now.
Yes.
So 14 years old, and you're having this development of, okay, I'm really interested in seeing how much I can help develop myself, but you still decide to study biology, correct, at first?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
At what point in your studies do you realize, nah, this isn't for me. I need to transition and become a licensed nutritionist?
So before I got into university, the question was, do I want to become a doctor or a nutritionist?
Okay.
But then I felt like, and no offense to any dietitian, I am one. I felt like, you know what? I've never taken the easy way out. I'm gonna go and become a doctor. So it was more of a right thing, wrong thing to do than of a internal feeling, I guess. And I've always wanted to become a doctor because I've always wanted to study the body and how it works. And I remember when I wanted to become a doctor, I always said that I wanted to become an endocrinologist so I could study the hormones so that I could understand humans even better and human behavior. So it was really still connected to that.
Yes.
And once I took my intro to psychology in the first semester of university, I remember going up to the instructor and I told him, do you think I should switch to psychology? He's like, don't give me that question. You're the one who's responsible for that. I'm not going to change your whole career. But it kept lingering in my mind. And 2 years into biology, I was majoring in biology, minoring in chemistry. I realized I love what I'm studying. I love studying the human body. I cannot see myself in a clinic, in a hospital, getting patients in and out. That's not what I want to do. And at the time, I was literally enrolled in every single extracurricular, everything that had to do with leadership, emotional intelligence, training, public speaking, community volunteering, all of that. If I
But
had 1 hour break,
sorry,
there
just to
was
interrupt.
I wanted
The
to work out.
quality of all this was good enough, even though you're still in Lebanon. I'm assuming, like the actual
Sorry?
quality of what you were being
Oh
taught was
yeah,
at a high level, even though like, in
yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
region it is taboo. Okay.
No, it was amazing. Honestly, I'm very grateful for my university. It was really good, and I took in whatever I felt like I needed to take in as well, which was what everybody does, I guess. But the more I did that, the more I felt like I was alive over there. And so at some point, I asked myself, because I was a nerd, and I still am, and I love it. um, I was like, okay, Maria, listen. The fact that you're doing all of these extracurriculars, that's you sacrificing grades and focus on studying in order to do those. So what do you want? Do you want a high GPA or do you want to really continue doing these extracurriculars? Literally, I had a conversation with myself. And then I decided that no, to hell with the grades. I'm gonna, for the first time in my life, if you know me, you know, I'm gonna go and continue these other things because this is what I really want. And the reason why I'm doing that is because it makes me feel alive. And that's gonna prepare me for what I wanna create. And I know that I'm not gonna apply for someone to hire me. And I knew what I wanted to create. So, yeah. From
So,
there, to answer your question,
go ahead.
it was so hard, by the way, to switch
Yeah.
majors. I switched to nutrition, minor in psychology. I didn't have the guts to go for psychology. I wish I did. And the more I finished my minor in psychology credits, and I asked my doctor at the time, can I keep attending all of the other classes without doing the exams so that I could continue learning psychology?
That's
And then,
amazing.
yeah.
What held you back from choosing to do that as a major, though? Why did you go for a minor?
I don't know. I guess because it wasn't on my list at the beginning. It was either this or that, and I never
Right.
even considered psychology. And I was already 2 years into university, and I had to do 4 more years. No, I'd rather to do
Right.
3 more years. I don't know, but
But why nutrition? Because you said at an early age you knew what you wanted, but why nutrition?
because at that early age, when I started to be more aware,
Yeah.
I really got into researching about how does the body work, how does strength training work, how does I used to research nutrition and fitness. That was my
Okay.
passion. So, and I also at the first year of university, I started working as a personal trainer as well. I worked in that industry for 7 years.
Okay.
So I was really into this field, and I loved understanding also. And I'm glad because now I could really tap into the full circle of high performance. I
For
said that-
sure, yeah, because you need to know all of that.
Yeah.
So,
But-
what inspired the high performance coach? Where did that motivation come from, and what inspired it?
So I was in 2022, I was in Mind Valley University. That's an event that happens every year in a different country where top speakers come in to talk about personal development.
There was one in
fitness,
Dubai 2 months ago, no?
Yes, that's
Oh,
right.
okay.
So at Mind Valley University, I met a person. His name is Brendan Kane. He's really good at helping people go viral with their content. He worked with Taylor Swift and Rihanna and like top people. So he's like, hey, I don't know why, but I want to sit with you for an hour to really like just help you in wherever you stand. And at that point, it was a turning point in my career. And so I literally left everything and decided to go full on for my dream. So I went there with just believing in myself, you know, that I'm gonna do whatever I said I was gonna do. So after I sitting with him, he's like, okay, the way that I hear you, because he said, coach me. And I was coaching him on the spot. He said, the way that you were coaching me and is literally, you need to go into high performance. And I asked myself, that's the question that I always ask myself. Who am I? And I'm a high performer. And if I want to help high performers, I know how they feel. I know how they're going to talk. I know how they're going to think. I know what are the blockages in their mind, because this is what I'm made of. So I'm just really, this is the closest thing to who I am on a personal level. So that's why I could really understand high performers on a deep, deep level, because I've been there. I've thought about these things. I know exactly how your mind works. And with my experience with them, I really understood or studied everything about high performers. So I took that word in, and we're still in contact. And it's like I took that word and I didn't even look it up. I didn't look up if there was any need for it. I didn't look up the business side of it. I didn't look up anything. It's like, who am I? I'm a high performer. Of course, I'm a high performance coach. Done. Like, that's it. He was like, give me a one-liner. We created a one-liner, and then I just took it off from there.
But let's dial it back a little bit, because I think that this is in 2022, but there's so much that happened before that led you to this moment, right? So you mentioned now just briefly that you did 7 years of personal training. I know from our conversation that was, professional athletes, but also with people at the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through that process, right? Doing something for 7 years, there must have been a lot of learnings, especially given the fact that you work with people at the highest level of physical performance and at the lowest. And can you tell us a little bit about each of those experiences?
I always say that in this 7-year experience, I did my own 7-year longitudinal study of human behavior, of what makes people show up, what makes people give up, what makes people keep going when all they want to do is give up. And the thing is, and I know it's not by coincidence, that the people that I worked with were either athletes or people who had autism, depression, PTSD, anxiety, eating disorders, all of these different ranges of emotions and emotional, traumas. And I was known as the mental fitness trainer. So the physical trainer that also used to work on the mental. Sometimes I used to stay 45 minutes just helping someone overcome a fear when it comes to a certain move. So
Wow.
I want to help. To me, if we do a 45-minute workout right now and you leave, you're okay, fine. Every rep counts and you're going to feel better, everything. But the fact that you overcame that fear, that's going to last so much longer than that one workout. So I really used to make time. And I also had something at the end of every session. I used to call it the treadmill therapy, where my clients would walk on the treadmill and they would talk about, what they were going through, and I would help them through that. Because to me, them releasing those emotions is also them getting healthier, because their body is the one that's keeping the score. So when you release
We were going to ask you about this at the end, but now that you mentioned it, I do want to ask one thing. Why would you do that at the end of a workout, not at the beginning?
Well, one, it was because I used to put the treadmill at the end of the workout, not at the beginning, because
Okay,
cardio,
fine.
I don't want them to waste their energy before the workout, so they use it to work their muscles. But also because, when you're stretching, you're just releasing. So it's also kind of that release, continuing on to that release.
But that goes against what you say, visualizing. So I usually take the treadmill. That should be like a visualizing. Start out the workout, and you want to talk into them about what the workout's going to be. So I would think it should be in the beginning aspect, because that's how you're really going to get them mentally into the workout. No?
Yes, and because that's critical a little bit, because if they
Right.
open up about their emotions and they get emotional from there, and then they can't focus on the workout itself, I don't want to go there.
Look,
You're all at the beginning, and then it's
I've
like
seen trainers at the gym, and it's more of like a coffee shop talk more
exactly,
than a freaking workout.
yeah. And
Clients
I
love
used
to
to
come in and talk.
exactly, and I used to be tough. They used to tell me you need to be trained in the military, because I'm smiling and I'm nice, but once you get in the gym and we get to business, that's people used to hate
Can I
me.
ask you? It's a personal question. You don't have to answer the athlete's name, but when did you have that breakthrough to work out the first athlete, big time athlete in the gym? We're talking about in the gym, not a high performance. Throughout those 7 years, when did you break through and you went from working with regular people to an actual athlete? Who trusted you the first?
It was an intertwine. It wasn't a shifting from one to the other. I was working with athletes, and at the same time, I was also working with non-athletes. So whether it was football players, whether it was not a lot of basketball players, though I would have loved to, but
Right.
yeah, and also because I was also the personal trainer at the university and the gym, and there were a lot of athletes there, so I used to love how they train, and I used to always observe, like, how do they prepare for a game, how do they warm up their body, and how do they train. So I was always interested in this.
Did you feel it was tough for you to convince them to train with you?
No, I don't
What
think
was your
so.
selling point?
I'm good at what I do.
So one of the things you've discussed a lot is understanding the importance of overcoming limiting beliefs, right? And like actually using your emotions to help you excel as opposed to draw you back. Can you share a personal experience where you overcame a limiting belief and how it transformed your approach to coaching?
Oh, for sure. Um, right before I ended my career as a personal trainer and jumped into literally the unknown of me just following my dream, I, I, like 2 to 3 years before actually taking that decision, I always used to feel like I know what I want, I know how to do it, I know the entire plan, I know the A to Z of that. I've had that vision since I was very young, but I just feel like I'm standing on the edge of that cliff and I cannot jump. And okay, I try to do different things. I try to gain more knowledge. I try to work on myself and on my mindset and everything. But I realized that, okay, so I don't think I could do that alone. And so I decided to do something that I've never done before, which is ask for help. So I went and I got my own coach. And I told her, literally, on the first session, I told her, okay, so I know I'm meant for greatness. There's something holding me back. I don't know what it is, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes because I feel like I'm standing on the edge of that cliff and I cannot jump. And as soon as I started to work on those limiting beliefs, I stopped pushing towards success. I literally started to flow towards success. Because at the end of the day, I'm destined for that. But if my destiny is like this and the voices in my head are like that, there's always going to be resistance. Right? So once you remove that resistance, you just flow.
I want to ask you a question regarding that. How do people overcome their comfort zone to go after something they love or they feel like, I want this, but they're scared, like you said? How do you overcome that?
Remember when you asked me about awareness at the beginning, I told you awareness is the number one step towards any change in behavior. If you don't realize that there's something that's holding you back, if you don't realize that there is that fear in the first place, there's no way you're going to go and do something about it.
But how do you identify that?
So with my work, at least with the people that I work with, we first start with, okay, so if you want to plant a garden, the first thing that you need to do before you put in the seeds and then you put the dirt back on and then you water that, if you do that alone at the beginning, you're only going to get, if you're lucky, you get 30% of your yield. But if you really want to get 100% of your yield, you need to clean up the ground first to make sure that that soil is fertile. You need to remove the rocks, you need to remove the weeds, you need to remove the pesticides from the core so that they don't come back up again. And then you plant the seeds, you put the dirt back on, and then you water it repetition every day, and then you get your yield. So the same thing with our subconscious mind. We first need to look into what is in my subconscious mind. What are the limiting beliefs that I have in my mind? What are the identities that I've given to myself that are no longer serving me? Those voices that I have in my head, how much of those voices are my own? And how much of those voices are what other people told me about who I am and what I can do or what I cannot do or what life needs to be like or what it doesn't need to be like or can't be like? Because most people, they put their own limitations on you and it's up to you whether you take it or you don't.
So that's what I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into. A lot of times the bad decisions we make in our life stem from things we've learned as young kids. And sometimes they're so deeply rooted in the subconscious that you don't even really remember why you are the way you are.
Is it because of the emotions that we go through? Is it more because I feel a lot of times we make these random decisions off purely emotions?
Obviously, I think Maria is the expert to answer here. I think obviously in any situation,
especially from my experience,
number one is definitely understanding that like you should always take a little bit of time to respond to something because your emotional response right away is going to be very different than your rational one. But like dialing it back a little bit deeper than that, how can you unlearn something that's so deeply entrenched in who you are as a kid if you're not willing to go take that step and see a coach the way you did, Maria?
It's easier than you think. Just to explain why that happens, by the way, and why so many of the beliefs that we take on as children are deeply rooted. It's because 30 to 50% of our personality is formed from the age of 0 to 7. And on the age of 0 to 7, our conscious mind meaning our rational brain, the way we analyze something or not, the ability to analyze something or not, the ability to have logic or reasoning in our thinking is not yet developed. And so we're only purely subconscious mind, so only emotions. And how do we know about how the world is and how the world is built? It's by observation. And who do we observe? Our parents, our caregivers, our teachers, the people around us. So how our parents love themselves is how they teach us to love ourselves. How they deal with work is how they teach us about what work is. How they deal with money is how they teach us about how we need to be dealing with money and whether it's abundant or it's lacking. How they believe in themselves is what we're writing, oh, that's how it should be. How they are together is what I'm writing, oh, that's how relationships should be. So who said that what they're telling me is actually true? Who said that the way they've understood life is the actual correct way, at least for me? And my own journey and my own experiences. Most people continue their lives without stopping to question those things that they've taken on when they were young. And so they continue with not their own voices and beliefs about themselves, but what other people think about who they are or about how life is. So the step here, and it's easier, I told you, it's easier than you think. So number one, once you were aware of what those stories are and what those meanings are, a question of one, is it actually true? What do I think about this? Changing the meaning that you give to something, as simple as changing the meaning that you give to a certain experience you've went through, and realizing that what you've thought that was is actually not the case, is enough for you to know that, oh, so when they did this, it didn't mean they didn't love me. I just understood they didn't love me because I needed love at the time. So I am loved by my parents. Oh, wow. So when my dad was not present because he was working, didn't mean he didn't love me. He was loving me in this way of providing. So, so I am loved. And once you change that perspective, you start seeing it. You start seeing it on the inside as well. And of course, there's a lot of forgiveness and emotional healing and all of that. Of course, there are so many things that support this, but just that shift in perspective can really help you change the way you see the world.
So saying all of that, I'm around a lot of top-notch athletes. How many of them do you believe have experienced high-performance coaches? And how important it is, you believe, moving forward for the upcoming athletes?
I think it's 1% of the athletes who have experienced the high performance, or even not just high performance coaching, but also any mental health journey, because that's super important. How important is it? The thing is with athletes is that they think that my time needs to be spent training and at the gym, and if I spend anything outside of that, then I am neglecting,
cheating the sport.
Exactly, cheating the sport, and I'm not giving it my best, and I'm not being good enough. And they push themselves in the physical, they push themselves in the mind, but then when they get to the court, their emotions get on top of their decisions and their actions and how much they can really focus and be present. So they don't access their peak state or their zone. Right. So they're not performing from that highest level. So if you really neglect your emotions, I always say that, and it's a quote, it's not mine. Your level of success can never exceed your level of personal development.
Do you want me to tell you a funny story? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah.
In 2008, I'm in Cabo, Mexico, on a vacation after the season, and I'm at the pool enjoying myself. And a gentleman, older man, approaches me. He's like, "Look like a basketball player." I'm like, "Yes, I am." And then we start talking, and he's a high-performance coach, and he tells me, the Lakers brought me to speak to Shaquille O'Neal. I'm like, interesting, tell me more. He's like, so we can get him through that free throw issue that he has. And he was like, when his first meeting with Shaquille O'Neal, you know what Shaquille O'Neal told him? I don't need you for one reason, because you're gonna make me lose money. And he was like, what do you mean? He was like, you know how many commercials I make because I miss free throws because I'm a bad free throw shooter? At the time, Taco Bell was signed Shaquille O'Neal for a crazy amount, and then he was making fun of missing the burritos. So he was like, I don't want to become a better free throw shooter because I want to keep making the extra money. So imagine that crazy. And that's the first time I actually inquired a high performance coach. And I remember I asked him about things that I could do better. But it's funny how when he went to like the top of the top, he told him, I'm okay, because he was thinking revenue wise, or like money wise, like I don't really need it.
But you know something, that the good thing about that is that he didn't take it personal. Shaquille O'Neal didn't say that I'm not good enough, that's why I was missing. Right. He's like, okay, I'm missing, I'm going to create an opportunity out of that, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Which is crazy.
It's funny, the athlete in me wants to be like that.
If it was affecting how he saw himself, then that would have been something he needed to.
So I'm glad Sam asked this question, transitioning into sports, because I think for us to tie in together why you're so relevant for us to be on the show is because of your love for basketball and the work you now do in the sporting game. I know the story of how you began working with the Lebanese national team and how you went and you sort of, from a distance, watched each player doing it, but I think Sam hasn't heard it, and I'd love for you to give our audience a sort of deep dive into Maria's mind, because I think that's a very good way of understanding how you think and how you got into this role.
So do you want me to tell the story from the beginning?
Yes, of course.
Okay. All right. So actually, when I started to work with athletes, it was football players and not basketball players. And it just happened. It wasn't something that I had planned. A few football players reached out to me, and we just started coaching, and I realized, oh, wow, I could really create a lot of change in the performance of that player. So in that same phase, I remember I wasn't in Lebanon, I was in France.
Okay.
And I was watching, I was working on my laptop, and I saw myself that I was working, and then I kept on looking at the TV. And then I'm like, okay, focus. And I kept working, and I kept looking at the TV, and the TV had a basketball game, a Lebanese basketball game going on. And then I realized I kept doing this, and I told myself, just close the laptop, go watch the game, if that's what you're gonna keep doing. And so I closed the laptop, and I went and I watched the game, and I started to observe the different players. And then in the next game, I got my younger brother who used to play basketball. I used to watch him all the time, and he's been following up on the basketball field in Lebanon way more than I have been in the past few years. So I told him, okay, listen, I want you to tell me about every single player. What are the good points? What are his strengths? What are his weaknesses? How do they play? What's their history? Everything. And so literally for several games, he sat and he told me about every single player. And I started to watch every single podcast every player has done, literally for no reason. I didn't even think I wanted to work with them. I was so interested. I was taken into this field. It was like, I wanted to know, I want to understand, I want to see how I honestly had zero intention in working with any of those people.
You got to be kidding me. No way at all?
I didn't even cross my mind.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
But I just kept on watching those podcasts and then educating myself. And then as soon as I got to Lebanon, my friend he just quit this year, the physiotherapist of the Knicks, his name is Erwin, he talks to me and he's like, hey, Angel, how are you? Are you in Lebanon? And I'm like, yes, why? Is he coming to Lebanon? Finally. So he's like, no, Eric Edmeets is in Lebanon and he's helping the basketball team to prepare themselves mentally for the World Cup. And I know Eric because I've met him at Mindval University several times, and I love his work. And I was actually taking his course. I was taking his course in a coffee shop, and I was watching him on the screen. And Erwin was talking to me, telling me that the guy I'm looking at on the screen right now is actually in Lebanon. So it was crazy how things are happening. So I reached out to Eric. I'm like, hey, if you need anything, I'm here. Just let me know. I didn't even think about basketball or anything. I just thought that I just wanted to meet up with Eric. So I went, that's literally that same night, I went and I met up with him. And he's like, there's a game tomorrow, do you want to come? So I went with him to the game. And as the game was playing, I said, notice how this guy is going to get his temper higher now. And notice how this guy is resting on how he's resting. He's not really refueling himself. He's actually making himself more tired. Notice how this guy's playing here. Notice how this person... And then he started asking me questions about the players, and I kept answering every single one of them. He's like, how do you know all of these things about these players? Can you be the assistant of the program with me? So I'm like, yes, of course. And this is when it started to get into my mind. And so, yeah. And then the next year, I was the high-performance coach of the national team, and then I started working with a lot of different players.
How did Coach Jad accept that?
Coach Jad was and still is, the most supportive coach and person in really helping put me out there. And just also because he appreciates the work. It has nothing to do with me personally, because he understands the value of it. And even then, when he wanted me to join the national team as the high-performance coach, he told me, start with me and then the players. Who does that in the field of high egos?
Coach
right?
Jad does, because he's a wonderful, amazing guy and very successful. Love the guy.
He's incredible. And even now, a lot of players approach me and they're like, Coach Jad told me to go talk to you, so I wanted to see if you could help. Literally. So I really respect him for this. He's always telling the players to go look within, to work on their mind and their emotions before the game. So that's amazing. I really
have two follow-ups there.
Okay. So, and are you still working with them or no?
The national team, no, but I work with different players on the side.
Okay, on the side. Okay, amazing. Yeah. Go ahead, Aboudi.
So two follow-ups there. Firstly, when you first engage with an athlete, how long until you try and uncover like that limiting belief they have, right? Because obviously if you try and jump right in, they might get defensive and you don't want to actually like make them uncomfortable. So that's number one. And number two, you've spoken a lot about visualization. And I want to understand how specifically, whether you're an athlete or not actually, but in this case athletes, how specifically you should visualize. So for example, if I'm sitting before a game, am I imagining I'm going to go drop 20 and 10 in this? Or am I just imagining the various scenarios in which I can see myself scoring, defending, assisting, rebounding? Or is it even more broad than that?
I love this question because it's so important. Which one should I start? The first one?
The first one.
Okay. Most of the athletes that I work with, most of the time they approach me and they have no idea about this entire world. and they're like, okay, I don't know where to start. And most of them, of course, if they don't know me before, I need to build trust. I need to help them feel safe, that they could really open up. And plus, most of them are men. So men are not taught to express their emotions, to really speak from their heart, to really say the things that they've been keeping on and holding on to. And most of their pains are the reasons why they push so hard on the court. So if they let go of that pain, am I going to push that hard? Am I going to lose my motivation if I let go of that pain? They don't realize that once they let go of that pain and tap into their own personal power, they're going to exceed the amount of success that they have reached right now and tenfold. So, but that's for them to realize after. But at the beginning, there's a lot of resistance because emotional expression, trust, and them dropping down their walls. But that's, I always say, building trust with the people that I work with is on me. That's my skill, you know? So, and I pick up, you told me how long does it take for you to uncover the limiting beliefs? It takes me a few seconds because I take those in the way that they talk, the words that they use, the way their body language is, their eyes, the tone, every single detail. I collect them together and I can know exactly what's holding this person back.
But
And then
I have to interrupt. It's
start to
intimidating with you though. I'll tell you why. With someone in your position, because like, let's say Sam and I meet, or you and I meet tomorrow. We're having a coffee, we're having a drink, whatever. Like, we're both in the same scenario where it's I'm meeting a new person. If I'm comfortable, I'm going to open up. When an athlete meets you, they know that your goal is to essentially undress them, emotionally,
But they
right?
don't know I'm
Right.
doing that. Most of them don't even know this is possible.
Okay.
I don't think that's the issue with us athletes, to be honest with you. I think is, can she get me to really where I want to get? Honestly,
Exactly.
it comes down to this. I don't really care about what you're gonna do. I'm coming into that meeting. Is she really gonna get me to where I want to get, which is the highest level?
Okay.
And is she proven, had she taken anybody to that level?
Okay.
And usually, if not, it's hard for a player that is his prime to take a chance on somebody new unless you really sell him on something that he hasn't heard before.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is
That's right.
absolutely not about the undressing and all of that. That's amazing, but it's absolutely, I look at, what are you going to do to my career? That's all I care about. Are you going to be able to take me to that highest level?
That's a high performer right there.
1,000%. I was laughing because I remembered a story, and I think it's interesting to share. After I gave the first workshop for the Lebanese national basketball team, one of the players approached me and he's like, "Hey, can we meet sometime after the workshop?" I'm like, "Sure." We exchanged contacts and we set out a time, and then during that day, he had to drive an hour and a half to get to where we were meeting, and he enters that space. He sits in front of me and he was like, "I'm here to prove to you why everything you said is absolutely wrong."
You probably have the biggest smile on your face.
I was because I know body language and I really know people. I felt zero threatened. I didn't feel threatened at all. I didn't feel like I
Right.
needed to justify myself. I could read through him because I know what happened. So I saw that the reason why he had to drive an hour and a half to come tell me that everything I said was wrong. Why? Because during this workshop, I talked to a pain that he had, that he didn't want to be there. So his whole alarm system was like, no, that's not true, I don't have that, no, that's not true, she's wrong. I have to go prove to her that she's wrong so that I protect myself. From that pain, because no, this pain does not exist. So I have to go and drive an hour and a half to go sit in front of her and tell her that no, that's not true. And I'm like, okay, ask me a question, let's discuss. I'm not going to convince you, let's discuss the different points. Tell me your point of view, I'll tell you mine. That person ended up continuing with me, one-on-one coaching, and the amount of progress he has done in his career is absolutely
Wow.
insane. It's insane how fast he grew, how fast he achieved. I'm so proud of him. One day we'll share the story, hopefully, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So my question to you, how do people can identify who they are within? Like, what is some strategy that you can use?
And
Because
that's a good
I believe some people sometimes are a little bit confused because of what's going on around them. And they try to be something that they're not really are. So how do they
Yeah.
identify themselves within?
Yeah. So what is really who I am and what is, I think it is, but it's not. One thing that helps me and that I always tell other people to use as a compass is whenever you're doing something and you forget time and space and you're fully immersed in the moment and your soul feels alive and your heart is expanding, that's something that's speaking to your truth. So do more of this and it will lead you into where you're supposed to be.
I love it.
So
I want to also answer Abudi's question on visualization,
yes.
right?
I wanted to
Yes, I didn't forget that. So I use a lot of NLP in my visualizations. I have my own recorded visualizations that I send to the players that they could do before the game, and I've DJ'd myself into this where I added, the sounds of the crowd, the sounds of the ball, the sounds of the different music, and I also use the high frequency sounds so that to help them access higher states of frequency. So one, the sound engineering of that sound also helps really these people to get involved. And what's the most important thing about visualization is that one, you use your 5 senses. What can you hear? What can you smell? What can you taste? What can you touch? What can you feel? Everything. And the second thing, and which is honestly the most important thing, is emotions. Because your brain does not know if something is happening in the past or in the future or in the present. As long as there's a strong emotion connected to it, your brain's going to think that this is happening right now. And so it's going to start to create new neural pathways around this reality. So the more that you do this visualization and you feel these heightened emotions, and if you do it on a daily basis, your brain's going to think, this is my reality. This is who I am. This is how I show up. This is how I play. This is how I shoot. This is how I do everything. And so it's going to start to literally physically, this is neuroplasticity, create new neural pathways in order to start helping you to develop those skills or to develop this confidence or to develop this feeling. And one of the things that is super powerful that I always share with my clients as soon as they're done with their first visualization, I always tell them, if you were able to feel this intense, heightened level of confidence right now without anything changing in your environment, it means that you don't need to do anything more in order to feel confident. You just need to access this confidence that you already have within you and start to act from that place in the outside world. And if you're walking like this and there's that vision outside of you and that goal of a player you want to become, and it's always like this, and you're never giving life to this vision in the present moment, if you're not walking like him, talking like him, working like him, playing like him, you're never going to give him life. So he's always going to be a version outside of you. If you really want to create and get to this goal, you need to get this person into the present moment. How does he act? How does he take decisions? How does he play? And to start actually putting this in action today until you become him.
So is it safe to say that the way you're describing visualization can somewhat be interchangeable with manifestation?
Because manifestation is all about becoming. What is manifestation? It's you to create a certain reality on the outside. It's also you attracting something like either the people, the opportunities, the relationships into your life. In order for you to attract something, it's the laws of physics. Third law of thermodynamics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if I'm putting a certain frequency out there, I'm going to get that same level of frequency. So if I want to get a higher level of frequency, I need to vibrate from that higher place. And for me to vibrate from that higher place, it needs to be coming from a place of truth and authenticity and becoming. It's who I am. It's not what I think I want or I think that I am. I need to embody it with full-on belief, with zero doubts. That is who I am. And what's going to stop you from this are the emotions that keep coming up and the voices. That's why it's super important to deal with those.
I have to tell a story, Sam. I can see you want to say something.
Go ahead. No, I'm loving this.
So I, last year, suffered like a pretty bad injury where I tore all the muscles at the bottom of my foot, my plantar fascia. And I remember I was sitting on the couch feeling really bad for myself and like moping. And I had a friend over and she was trying to say like, obviously there's a silver lining here and this and that. And I was refusing to believe it. And the two of us are sitting chatting and I'm being such a negative Nancy. And all of a sudden the roof of my house exploded and water started coming through and the kitchen flooded and everything happened. And like, obviously my negative emotion didn't cause the roof to explode, but it did kind of teach me that when you have such a negative outlook on things, you are attracting more negative things in real life. So what you're saying resonates on a deep level because I had a personal experience that actually made me realize that, okay, you're allowed to like process things when they happen, especially if they're not good, but that doesn't mean you have to then reflect it on the outside as well.
And also, I always say, give yourself that one whole day where you're going to cry yourself out of this and where you're just going to be full on sad, but then after that day, just get back up.
This
and
too
keep
shall
going.
pass, yeah.
And allow yourself to feel that pain. Allow yourself to be sad. It's okay, and it's so normal to be sad about it, especially as an athlete. That's your whole career. But what do you want to do after you're sad?
100%.
You know how hard that is especially for men athletes, what you're saying, to
I
literally do
know.
that. That's extremely tough.
I know, firsthand, I know.
But
But
I want
Sam,
to
you
go back
saw a
on.
therapist when you were playing, no? And that's like way
No,
before.
I didn't. When I was playing, I didn't. I had mentors that been at the highest level. They used to walk me through
Okay.
what I was going through. I didn't see a therapist till I retired because I was going through so much with the coaching, personal life, and things like that. But during my playing career, I didn't have access to any high performance coaches.
Okay.
All I was always going through, I've had access to high performance players, and I used to ask them and pick their brain. How'd you get there? How do you deal with this? How do you deal with that? And this is why I wanted to ask her, because I know she was talking about how she actually used technique of the sound of the crowd, the sound of the ball. But what strategies do you use to help athletes bounce back from a mistake within the game, during the game?
So that visualization is the pre-performance preparation. There's also
Right.
during the performance.
Correct.
And athletes don't have the time to be like, what am I thinking right now? What emotions are coming up for me? They have 1 second to really switch back and then continue playing. They don't have the luxury of time. So there are several different ways and several different stages, because when you're on the bench, that's one thing. When you're on
Right.
the ground, that's also another thing.
Correct.
And when something happens, or like a fight or something, or disagreement, that's also another thing. So there's different scenarios for it during the game, right? So when that athlete, there's a technique that I teach, and it's called the mental toolbox.
Okay.
And that mental toolbox would have different techniques that athlete would use depending on what works for them and what works for them in the moment. And we would pre-prepare this mental toolbox by trying different things out and then seeing what really works for you. And so during this 1 second time, they open this mental toolbox. Okay, what am I going to do right now? So some of the things, it would be focusing on your breath, taking deep breaths so that you get yourself back into the present moment, so that you're not in your head and in your thoughts. Because what is our goal here when you're performing? Is for you to be in the highest or peak state. The peak state, or the zone in basketball, is also scientifically called the flow state. The flow state is when you're at a higher level of consciousness, where you forget time and space and you're fully present in the moment. This is when you're able to use your full skills and abilities, where you're able to take faster decisions, where you're able to play from intuition, where you're able to problem solve much faster than before. So to me, the main goal is to keep them in that flow state as long as I can and as long as they can. So what is the first necessary thing for you to be in that flow state? One is to be present in the moment. So that's why deep breathing helps you get back into the present moment. Using your 5 senses, what do I hear? What do I see? What do I touch? What do I smell? Gets me back here and not in my head. And then knowing that those thoughts in my head, I'm going to deal with them right after I finish. So I'm scheduling time for them. I'm telling them that I will deal with you, just not now. After I finish. Right now, what's my first next step? So the second thing that's important for flow state is clarity. Because the more you're clear on what you need to be doing, the more your brain's going to help you to work towards that. So here, when you have clarity, okay, what is required of me? So I need to be, I don't know, giving a pass or taking the ball or shooting or whatever. So what's my first next step in order to get to that destination? So just focusing on the next step, being present in the moment. And then there's also the pre-preparation before the game in terms of skills. And all.
So
And
I know
also,
go ahead.
yeah, that one last thing is that a lot of the times these things, that the thoughts that come up in their minds are self-doubts, lack of confidence. They get the ball, they freeze, they don't know what to do with it, they don't have the confidence to shoot, they don't know who to pass the ball to. So we would be working on those thoughts before the game. So during the game, they would have most of them tell me, I have your voice in my head all the time. So they would know how to deal with them and how to answer back to those thoughts when they come up, how to see those thoughts and understand those thoughts when they come up, because their emotional awareness and emotional management has shifted. So it's much faster for them to overcome that and then keep on focusing on the game.
Before I go to my next question, I want to tell you one thing I use in my playbook. So when I'm covering the offense, when I take over a team, one of the slides, it states on to the next play. Whatever happens, you're on to the next play. That play is over with, on to the next play. And I always remember when a play like turn the ball over or misses, and he looks at me, I'm like, on to the next play, let's go, move on. Life goes on, let's go. So
I always tell them that. Okay, next. Next.
Right.
It's a metaphor for
But
life, right? Like you can't sit and dwell on.
yeah. So I have a question for you, and I think a lot of athletes are gonna love this. Game is on the line. 3, 2, 1. How do you handle the pressure in that present moment?
Yeah. So one, there's experience. The more you put yourself in that game situation, the more you're able to have more confidence for you to do that. So and I've worked a lot with this, and after working a lot with this with a certain athlete, there were 3 games where he took the winning shot, one after the other. So because he put himself in that game situation. 2 is visualizing yourself doing that, so that you're also helping your brain rewire itself and getting those skills onto, I'm able to do that, I see myself doing that, I already saw myself doing that, of course I can do it again, this is more familiar to me. The more something is unfamiliar, the more it's dangerous for your brain. The more something's familiar, the more your brain's going to take you towards it. So the more you see it, visualize it, the more you train on it, the more it's familiar for your brain, so it's not scary anymore. So, and also perception. Is it a winning shot? Is it a 3, 2, 1 shot, or is it just another shot that I'm taking?
Exactly.
If I could shoot one, I could shoot this one. What's the difference? The time? What am I focusing on? You know?
I love it. And I remember I missed a lot of game-winning shots, and I made some. I remember the first one I missed. I was so frustrated. I remember I reached out to one of my teammates that I played with in the U.S., and I told him his name was Willie Fardy, and he was playing in Australia. And I told him, I missed that shot. How the hell do you make most of your shots? He's like, Sam, first of all, you have to be prepared, and you can never blame yourself for missing that shot. You have to develop that pattern of you building that confidence that if you miss, you look at your teammates and the coach, on to the next one, let's go, we got this. I remember the next day I went to practice, and they were like, man, how'd you miss that? I was like, I didn't miss it. It just didn't go in. And they all gave me that look. I'm like, I didn't miss it. I shot my shot, it just didn't go in. It wasn't my fault. And they all looked at me with that look like, this dude is insane. I remember when the opportunity came again, alhamdulillah, thank Allah for this, I was able to make it. So it's unbelievable.
It's the man in the arena, right? At least you're the one taking the shot and stepping
Right.
up and being there for your team when they need it most.
You know what you did here is that you said, I didn't miss it. You disconnected your identity from the actual act of quote unquote failing to put it in,
Right.
So it's not me that failed, it's the ball that didn't go in, so I am not the failure.
What do you think of that method? Does that kind of work?
This definitely helps, because
Right.
the way you identify, your brain is completely consistent with the way that you identify yourself.
Okay.
Because your brain's going to take an identity and it's going to say, yes, sir, I'm going to go make sure to make that happen because your order is my command. And so when you say, I'm someone who misses shots, then your brain's going to be like, I'm going to look for all the opportunities that will help you miss those shots. Your brain doesn't have the wisdom. It has intellect. It's smart, but it's not wise. You're the one who's wise and tells your brain and rewire your brain based on how you want it to function. So whatever you feed your brain, it's going to take in and make it happen.
I would actually like to get both of your views on my next question. So you're a head coach, and literally there's 3, 2, 1. There's 3 seconds left on the shot clock, and you call a timeout, and you're drawing a play. How do you pick who shoots that shot? Do you go off personalities? Can this guy handle the pressure? And if he misses, is he going to be able to live with himself and handle the pressure of the media, his teammates? Or do you pick somebody that has a stronger personality, can deal with it, but might not be the best shooter and the best option?
Ladies first.
I would go for both. 1, skills, and 2, not personality, but character and how much he's focused in the game right now. If someone's out of the game, why do I want to count on him even if he's the best player? If he's not in his mind right now and he's not focused and fully present, I'm not going to depend on that person.
What about if the other one can't handle the miss because the media is going to be on him after the game?
It depends on the coach as well. He sets the tone.
Okay.
Because if that coach is going to be blaming that player on whether he missed or didn't, he's going to set the pace for the entire team. But if that coach is going to be like, it's fine, it's okay, I trusted you with that because I know I can count on you now when you miss and when you don't miss. So it's okay, don't worry about it. I knew you could do it. It's just, these things happen all the time. If that coach tells him that, whoever he is going to be able to handle that. So
For me, it's number one, feed the hot hand. Doesn't matter if it's a star player or it's the number 10 player. If someone's cooking, someone's cooking. As Maria said, it's your job as a coach where if that person then misses the shot, then you handle it. But I wouldn't even let that creep into my mind because you're creating a reality that's not there. If someone's hot, I'm trusting him to make it. If he misses it, we handle that when he handles that. If no one's really stepped up during the game and it's kind of just been a regular game, then you're going to the star player, the guy or the girl that's demonstrated their ability to handle these situations in the past.
Yeah.
But I want to use that as a way to transition into the next part, final part of our conversation, because you kind of briefly touched upon the fact that you went and you worked for the national team for a little bit, but then you left. I know that you have this platform now called Home of Greatness, right? Where you are now specifically targeting high performers. What gaps did you identify in the existing resources that led you to create this company? And how does it serve entrepreneurs and athletes uniquely?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Yeah. So what gaps did you identify in existing resources in this space that led you to create the company? And how are you serving entrepreneurs and athletes uniquely?
Okay. So one of the gaps is the feeling of loneliness, because really high performers to me are people who know that they're meant for greatness. And it's either that there's something holding them back or they neglect balance in different areas of their life because they're only focused on their careers. And usually when someone's very ambitious, they're seeking out other people who are like them, who would speak the same language. Not just whoever you are, you're always seeking out people who speak the same language, who have that same, ambition or fire you have within you. And it's like, and I talk to them on a daily basis, and every single one of them tells me, where are they? Where are those people that I could talk to, that I could really connect with on a deep level, not just have shallow conversations? Because the people that I work with, most of the people, they talk to them, they want to be friends with them because they're important, right? So no, I want people to deeply connect with. So people that I could feel that, yes, he's just as ambitious, he speaks the same language. So I wanted to get those people together because I work with you every single day, but you're disconnected. I just want to put you guys together. So one, so that they could feel a sense of belonging, that they're not alone. Two, to provide the right kind of support across all different areas of their life and in their mind, body, heart, and soul. So in different ways, in different strategies. So to really be creating a full circle support to those people. And some of also the lacks that are provided are, one, there's skills, knowledge, trust, to really help them to become more aware on what do they need, how do they need it, how can they have it, how can they take it. Understand emotions is the big thing, especially with entrepreneurs and athletes. The world of emotions is completely, I'm not going to overgeneralize, but it's the biggest thing that they're probably either not aware of or not giving importance to. And if you talk physically, biology, the heart has an electromagnetic field amplitude that is 60 times greater than the brain's. And it's the heart that communicates with the mind and the body, and not the brain that communicates with the body and the heart. So if you're really not dealing with your emotions, it means that your entire system is blocked because your heart is blocked, and stagnation means death and or disease, right? So if you're holding your heart closed like that, and it's not sending out this highest frequency, and it's not communicating with your mind and your body, you're not going to reach your peak performance. You're not going to reach the highest level of your mind, nor the highest level of your body. So I really want to start to raise awareness on the importance of emotions when it comes to high performance. Not because it's trendy right now, because it's actually super effective.
That's a good point. So I guess the question that makes me want to ask is, how do you, as someone who's also always willing to learn, how do you separate the trends from actual research information? Because now every Tom, Dick, and Harry believes they have a PhD in psychology and mental wellness and well-being.
Yep.
And on the one hand, this symmetric access to information that we all have now is a wonderful thing because we can all take it upon ourselves to learn and to better ourselves. But on the other hand, it fucking sucks because anyone can put an opinion out there, and with the right kind of, marketing and media, you can get anyone behind a trend or a diet or a fad or all this bullshit. So I guess for you as Maria, how do you address and focus on your learning given that there's just so much different kinds of information out there?
Yeah, so it depends on your reference. Where are you learning from? So is it science-based? Is it actually an academic source or not? To question everything you're hearing. So not everything that I see, I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. I have to actually go look it up, fact check, to see, is it actually true? is it scientifically proven? And I've chosen the people that I want to study from, you know? It's like what they say I know is true because I know they have an entire research center that studies all of these, and I can see the reports and they keep on referring to different studies. So because I really, how do I say it in English? حصنت حالي, you know, like I really built out this sturdy ground of knowledge that I had, and it was on a scientific basis. Right now, it's easy for me to analyze, to question, and to really feel like if I don't really trust this, I have to look that up more. So it's easier for me to raise questions on the resources and on the different trends. And plus, most people, if it sounds well, if it sounds nice, you know, I'm going to go and share it. I'm going to write a book about it, and then that's why I prefer podcasts over books, because the books are just repetitive in different ways. And it's really just that one truth. Like that, it's just simple. Physics, quantum physics, the neuroscience, the human heart, the human body, spirituality, all of that, like just connecting different sciences together, and everything just makes sense, at least to me. So, yeah, I don't like when it sings, I like when it speaks.
I have two questions for you. The first one, you've worked with a lot of athletes. Has it always worked, and has it always been a success?
It has. It has.
It has.
Honestly,
So we're
I
talking
can say
about 100% success rate?
Yeah, I would say 96%. And the reason why I would say 4 is because one of the athletes, he didn't want to push more. He was satisfied with where he was. So to me, I know I could have taken you more, but I cannot push you to where you don't want to go. So was it a success? It was a success to him, but to me, I knew I could get more from this person, but they didn't want to go
I
there.
have a feeling I know who you're talking about.
So what separates mental toughness athletes from the rest? Since we're talking about that, you pointed out an athlete didn't want to push. Is this because of mental toughness? He didn't want to push that extra? Was he afraid of the greatness and what he's going to be pushing?
He didn't even, I don't think he was even connected to that greatness. So there wasn't that intense feeling that he wanted to, he didn't know what he's capable of. That's why.
Right.
That's why I say awareness is the first step towards any change in behavior, because
Right.
he wasn't aware of what I could see in him. If he cannot
Okay.
see it, he's not going to be very motivated
True.
to really push towards that. So mental toughness is an incredibly important skill, but you know, there are some athletes that are very mentally tough, but their lack of emotional maturity can really stop them from really becoming the best players that they could become. So then where is mental toughness here? You know?
Well, can you share a moment when you saw mental training make a game-changing difference? Like you were watching some of the athletes you were training, you were like, wow, I see it coming together.
Yes, yes, I do. I want to remember a specific moment. It's actually a story that he told me, because he was playing abroad, so I couldn't see that. So, but he told me he didn't do the visualization before the game, and he entered the first half of the game, and he was missing a few shots. He wasn't really in his zone. He wasn't really focused, and then he was like, I remembered in the halftime that I didn't do the visualization. So I went in the halftime, because he's done it so many times before. It took him just a few seconds to really get himself back in the zone. He did the visualization in his mind, and then he went in the game after, in the second half, and he crushed it. He did not
Wow.
miss. Yeah. So I don't like to have athletes dependent on certain things, but visualization is you putting yourself in a state of focus, in a state of presence, in a state of high confidence, in a state of power. So the more that he was stepping from that place, the more he was winning. The more that he wasn't stepping from that place, the more that he was distracted. So he wasn't really playing well.
We've spent a lot of this conversation, you know, I use the word conversation intentionally, not interview, but we spent a lot of this conversation speaking about what you do and the impact you have on others. But people, and as you've always articulated, can only succeed when they allow time for themselves. So one of the last questions I have is, and Sam and I are also kind of experiencing this now as we start to build our platform through this podcast, is, you know, balancing a public persona with a private life can be very challenging. And you are someone who posts on social media every day. You've got a great social media, very encouraging, very powerful, very empowering, sorry. But ultimately, Maria needs time for Maria. So how do you balance, given that so much of what you do is based on social media and putting yourself out there, but also knowing that you need time for yourself?
Yeah. So one thing that's important to keep in mind is when you show up on social media, to show up authentically. Because when you don't show up authentically, it's going to take a lot of energy from you because you're putting a lot of energy into being fake and being what other people want to see of you, etc. So that's one thing to protect your energy. The second thing is that I'm very private about my private life. People see a lot of things going on in my life and they think they know everything that's going on in my life, but they don't, because at the end of the day, social media is not real life, right? I show the things that are related because social media right now is a big part of my work. So I could do it. I could choose to share personal stuff. A lot of people do share personal stuff. I choose not to because I also, as we were talking about that dream, I want to protect the people that I love. I want to protect my private life. I want to protect my emotions because I want to deal with them so that I have the power and the strength in order to go up and then help other people. But I always make sure to keep it real. So if I find myself achieving, I always keep in mind that what are people seeing through social media right now? Are they comparing themselves to you? So I also make sure to show behind the scenes. I also make sure to show long hours of work. I also make sure to show that I'm exhausted. It's not just win-win-win. It's also a lot of hard work and being tired, right? So
How do you chase excellence without feeling guilty to the people around you, not giving them the time they deserve?
tell me the answer.
That is something I'm guilty of, and I would like to hear your take on that.
Yeah, and one thing that I'm intentionally trying to do in my everyday life is to, just like I schedule time for working out, schedule time for work, scheduling time for family and friends is also super important. And I don't like to use scheduling the time, but in a space that is super demanding and in a high performing life, it's also important to schedule time for those people because I'm intentionally making time for the people that matter and my priorities, you know? And
Without making them feel like you're fitting them in your schedule, right? Like that's
Right.
Exactly, 1,000%. And it's also important to understand that there are phases. And I always talk about that there are phases where you're going to be busier than most. Communicate that to the people that you love. That I am busy for this time. I'm not probably going to be able to show up as much as I'm usually show up or as much as I would like to or you would like me to. But as soon as this is done, I want to make time for this. Let's do something together, etc., and actually show up for that, not just put false promises. So communication is super important.
I love that advice. I wish I can communicate better. That's something I've been trying to work on so much.
Because they don't know what's
It is so, because I am like all over the place all day. Like it's nonstop. And then like sometimes I'll have do not disturb on my door and it feels like walk in and have a 30-minute conversation. And it throws everything off of my day. And I feel bad because I don't want to say, I'm busy, you got to leave my office. And it drives me nuts.
This has been one of the funnest things about Sam and I developing our relationship. Obviously, I'm not trying to, we were very close before we started doing this, but we now work together, obviously, and I'm over communicative on the phone because I'm always on my phone for my full-time job, and Sam obviously half the time can't even look at his phone because he's on the court. So there's times where like he'll probably put his phone down for an hour, turn it over, and have 100 messages from me, and I realize I gotta be better as well and understanding that he's not going to read all those, but like. It goes both ways, obviously.
Love and hate, baby. I love it. But he knows how to get a hold of me. He knows who to text when it's really urgent. He goes right to that source. And all of a sudden, I see somebody walking on the court. Booty's asking 1, 2, 3. He need an answer now. I'm like, I need here.
I only text Lily if it's very important. You know that.
I know, which I respect.
Maria, wrapping up, we have 3 questions we ask all of our guests that we think also we'd love to ask you. So, unless Sam, you got any more questions from the regular conversation, I'm going to dive right in.
No, I'm ready to dive right in. One thing that you haven't accomplished yet that keeps you up at night.
Building Home of Greatness and what I want it to be.
Oh, I love this.
We got to follow up quickly and just ask, what do you want it to be?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
What do you want it to be? You said building Home of Greatness and what you want it to be. So
I'm not going to say. Just sit back and watch the show. And if you want to join, you're more than welcome.
Oh, we're hopping on that train. Trust me.
More than welcome. My pleasure.
So, and I'll change the question a little bit for you because I think it's more relevant this way. How do you help your clients, not only your athletes, but your clients, approach the idea of identity, given that, especially in an athletic sense, when you play a sport for so long, your identity is attached to that sport and nothing else?
Yeah, and this is the perfect place to start from, where it's not who you are, it's what you do. And it's part of who you are, but because I don't only work with athletes, I also work with artists. And some of the artists are like, used to be athletes, for example. And they're like, I don't know who I am. Am I the artist? Am I the athlete? Am I the person with my family? Am I the person with my friends? Am I the person when I'm alone? Who am I? Why do you have to be one of those? Why can't you be just all of these things? Because there are different parts of you and different ways that you like to express yourself as well. So it's also important to question that identity, to know, how do I identify myself as? Is it actually true? Is there something else to it? What do I feel makes me who I am, and have the courage to claim that?
This is a very important question in my line of work. What advice would you give parents looking to support their child athletic journey?
Listen to them, because they're wiser than you think, and they know what they want more than you think. Don't limit them. Allow them to dream. Allow them to go for the opportunities that you think might be too crazy for you, but allow them to put them out there. And don't always blame the coaches if they're not getting time to play. I know you believe in your son and your daughter, but if you feel like they're not getting enough time to play, invest in their skills. So maybe they're better, and then they get to play even more. Invest in their character so that they show up to their team. They show up as leaders as well, on court and off court. So yeah, because a lot of parents do that, right?
What a great answer. And I am so thankful that's coming from a professional like yourself. That is amazing. Well said.
Maria, despite the aforementioned difference in communication styles that Sam and I have, typically him and I always align on everything with this podcast, and we align very much on the guests. You were the first person that I just reached out to before I told Sam, because of the fact that you're not actually an athlete, and I wanted to just get someone on that I thought could challenge both of us, but also our audience. And then when I told Sam that I had this idea, Sam was like, I'm so glad, because I've been thinking the same thing. And I genuinely think, as excited as both of us were, that episode actually outweighed our expectations. This was so nice to have. It was so real and authentic, and just genuinely want to say thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure to have you on.
It was my biggest pleasure. Thank you guys, because you guys are giving a platform also to showcase how important this kind of work is for athletes and for this field. And also thank you for the way that you led the conversation. I've been to a lot of podcasts, and I feel like I've been saying the same things on and on and on. I feel like I had a different conversation with you guys. So thank you for having me. Thank you for what you're doing. You have my full support on that. Keep going. And
It means the world to us, honestly.
We can't thank you enough. I mean, having you, I knew it was going to be a great episode, but I did not expect that. You're amazing.
Thank you.
And we will be sending you a lot of athletes, including myself. Thank you again.
My biggest pleasure.
If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to us on YouTube and all podcasting apps.
And make sure you follow us on all the social media apps. Another one in the books, baby. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.